From CNN headquarters in Atlanta, I'm David Goodnow. This is Headline News. There's no place like home tonight for Chief Warrant Officer Bobby Wayne Hall. The plane carrying the 28-year-old Army helicopter pilot is expected to touch down at MacDill Air Force Base in Tampa, Florida, in about 15 minutes from now. 40 miles away, residents of Brooksville, Hall's hometown, are eagerly awaiting his arrival. Hall was held in captivity for 13 days by the North Koreans. His release came yesterday following tense negotiations. Hall crossed over the demilitarized zone into South Korea about 26 hours ago. After a brief ceremony, he was taken to Seoul and given a medical checkup. Hall then boarded an Air Force plane home. Before departing the Korean peninsula, though, he had this to say.
I would also like to thank all the sailors, soldiers, Marines, and Air Force for all their help, and Mr. Hubbard, Congressman Richardson, for all their help in my speedy return back to the United States, or back to the free world. I'd also like to express my gratitude towards my family, friends, and everyone in Brooksville and everyone that had anything to do with helping me and supporting me get back to the United States.
Hall was captured when his unarmed helicopter went down after it entered North Korean airspace. His co-pilot, David Heilman, was killed. Many questions concerning the helicopter's downing remain unanswered. A massive manhunt is underway tonight for a white male in his 30s who opened fire at 2 women's clinics near Boston this morning. The New York Times reports the search is centering on Hampton, New Hampshire. The paper quotes sources as saying the suspect has been traced through a paper bag found at one of the clinics. It contained a pistol and a receipt for ammunition. 2 women, both clinic workers, were killed, and 5 people were wounded in the attack. Brian Jenkins has more on today's events.
The peace of a quiet neighborhood was shattered when a young white man dressed in black walked into this Planned Parenthood clinic shortly after 10 a.m. and opened fire with a semi-automatic rifle.
What did he do right after the shooting?
He just ran out.
Why do you have blood on your hands? Tell me about what happened.
One of the girls was bleeding, and she wanted me to help her.
Father, use this time to minister to them, oh God, please.
Shot dead was receptionist Shannon Lowney, age 25. Another woman staff member was wounded, along with 2 visitors who had accompanied patients to the clinic.
He was right behind me. He had a shotgun. I jumped over one. He was shooting everybody.
Just 15 minutes later, at another abortion clinic 2 miles away on the same street, a man of similar description pulled a rifle out of a duffel bag and shot 3 people. A woman staff member in her late 30s later died at a nearby hospital. Another woman and a male security guard are listed in fair condition. Police later found the duffel bag at the scene, and they think the suspect may have driven off in a white compact car.
It's unbelievable to me that this actually could happen to us here. You know, when you're providing abortion services, that it could happen. You think that you're prepared for it. You think that you're emotionally prepared for it, that security-wise you're prepared for it, and yet it has hit all of us in a way that is so profound.
Massachusetts Governor William Weld promised the state's full resources to help track down the killer.
This man is nothing other than a terrorist, and he cannot be permitted any form of satisfaction, neither he nor his like. And no one is going to settle moral arguments by violence in Massachusetts.
While the manhunt continued, supporters of abortion rights held a candlelight vigil and walked to a nearby temple where speakers called on them never to forget the price that 2 women paid for working in abortion clinics.
Their lives and this violence cannot go unanswered. And we pledge, each of us, no matter what our fear of future violence, that we will not let it go unanswered.
Into the evening, people left burning candles and flowers on the front stoop of the Planned Parenthood clinic, offerings of condolence and symbols of a struggle to protect what they consider a woman's right to choose. Brian Jenkins, CNN, Brookline, Massachusetts.
A draft Senate report finds the White House ignored a police request to seal Vincent Foster's office immediately after his suicide. The Senate Banking Committee said U.S. Park Police investigators asked presidential aides to secure the office, but they failed to do so. Foster's body was found on federal parkland July 20th, 1993. The Senate report is important to the Whitewater investigations. Files regarding the failed real estate venture were removed from Foster's office. President Clinton is spending the New Year's weekend at Camp David, and he'll travel to South Carolina and Arkansas, then return to Washington next week. Meanwhile, people responding to a Newsweek poll did not pick the president to win re-election if there were a vote today. Former Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman General Colin Powell gets the nod in a two-man race. Mr. Clinton would also lose if he were running against Robert Dole. The poll has a sampling error of plus or minus 4 percentage points. Incoming Senate Majority Leader Dole is sounding a cautious note about the Republican takeover of Congress. He says some of the GOP goals won't happen. But incoming House Majority Leader Newt Gingrich is confident Republicans will hit the ground running. House leaders have talked of working through the night Wednesday to achieve 8 first-day promises in their contract with America. Bob Franken reports Congressman Gingrich got a taste of compromise this week over a book deal.
The decision to turn away from $4.5 million was an effort to cut his political losses after more than a week of uproar. But Newt Gingrich was clearly not ecstatic about it.
We are not wealthy people, and we understand that $4.5 million is a lot of money.
Far more than the usual publisher's advance for 2 books, which is what put Mr. Gingrich in the center of still another controversy. Gingrich decided to accept instead just a $1 advance and make his money from royalties, but not before his office put on a display of books written by other office holders, 23 current members of Congress, Vice President Gore, 3 Kennedy brothers, even Winston Churchill. However, easy come, easy go.
People want leadership, and I think if you have been given a chance by your country to lead, you can't just be defensively narrow and say, well, this is legal and ethical.
I would suggest to you that he didn't see the light so much as that he felt the heat.
Congressman David Bonnier has been leading the Democratic charge against Gingrich, but it wasn't just Democrats raising Cain. Many Republicans were clearly unhappy. Incoming Senate Republican leader Bob Dole said the deal raises questions. But after the Gingrich news conference, Dole put out another statement. His action lays to rest the book issue. But Bonnier certainly had other ideas about that.
The fact that Mr. Gingrich retreated on this one issue does not clear the ethical cloud that is hanging over his head.
In fact, there are questions about several $1 million contributed to Gingrich's political action committees and his college courses, and demands that the contributors be identified, demands Gingrich has resisted. There is now word his college lectures may be shown on TCI, the nation's largest owner of cable systems.
He was elected to lead this country, not to be up for sale by the highest bidder.
I mean, I think if I announced today that I was buying vanilla ice cream for every child in America, David Bonnier would promptly jump up and say, aha, he wants them all to have heart attacks someday.
The fact is, the book deal caused any number of Republicans a political heart attack. But they hope that Newt Gingrich has gotten past this latest controversy, because there are countless others ahead. Bob Franken, CNN, Capitol Hill.
Newt Gingrich's mother tells C-SPAN she thought her son would one day become curator of a zoo. She said the incoming House Majority Leader now has his zoo. In Bosnia, last-ditch peace efforts may succeed. After 2 days of talks, a UN spokesman said the Bosnian government and Bosnian Serbs are close to renewing a 4-month ceasefire. The current one expires tomorrow. Today, the Bosnian Serbs said they accepted the ceasefire and plan to sign it tomorrow. But then the Bosnian government said the agreement lacked substance. A deal may be brokered by tomorrow. Peace negotiations have not stopped fighting in Bihać, though. 3 Serb shells landed in that city today. Federal Aviation Administration has decided to continue an icy weather flight ban on ATR commuter planes. The French manufacturer presented a plan today to improve a wing mechanism that breaks up ice. Icing may have been the prime cause in the crash of an American Eagle ATR in October. The FAA says it needs more time to study the company's proposal. The Transportation Department has scheduled an aviation safety summit. The meeting will focus on improving safety measures and increasing public confidence in the airlines. It will be held in Washington January 9th and 10th. The summit is part of the Transportation Department's response to recent airline crashes. A new type of gasoline will hit the pumps on January 1st. Tony Clark examines the drawbacks and benefits of the reformulated fuel.
Motorists in about 17 states will be pumping something new into their gas tank starting at the first of the year. It's called reformulated gasoline.
There have been things taken out of the gasoline, things put into the gasoline, and some of the things that are in the gasoline have been rearranged.
This rearranged gasoline can cost 5 to 15 cents more a gallon at the pump and get slightly lower gas mileage. Yet it has one important benefit over conventional gasoline.
It reduces the smog-forming components by 15% and reduces air toxics by 15%.
Cars and trucks spew out tons of smog-forming ozone every day. This ground-level ozone can damage sensitive lung tissue, as well as cause coughing, chest pains, and stinging eyes. Officials say this new type of gasoline will have an immediate impact on that.
It's not something that's phased in. It's not something that takes time to build. It's there. Just today, when we start using reformulated gasoline, there will be less pollution in the atmosphere.
The new gasoline will be required in 9 cities with the worst air pollution. A number of other cities are voluntarily taking part in the program. In those cities, signs are beginning to show up at the pumps announcing the new, cleaner-burning gasoline.
It's a good way of helping a state come into compliance with the Clean Air Act.
Houston, Texas is one of the cities required to have reformulated gasoline. Dealers there started selling the new fuel at the first part of December, and many customers never noticed.
Not even one question from certain customer asked me about the new gas.
It runs the same. No, I don't see any difference in performance in the way it runs.
It's like, as long as my vehicle goes, that's it for me. So I just put gas in it and go.
Oil companies have spent an estimated $14 billion to get ready for the change to reformulated gasoline. About 1/3 of the gasoline produced in the U.S. will be the reformulated type. Analysts say for motorists, it will be an effortless way to cut air pollution.
And you will do exactly on January the 1st what you did anytime you filled up in December. Only the composition of the gasoline will be different.
And as a result, the air will be cleaner. Tony Clark, CNN, Houston.
Coming up in Headline Consumer News, logging threatens some guerrillas in California. Later, we'll go where classics reign supreme.
Rain in the southeast this weekend. A rain and snow mix will fall across the Midwest with snow and ice across the Great Lakes and High Plains.
This is Headline News, a CNN network.
Cuando hay estrés, ¿no sería maravilloso tener su masajista personal que calme y alivie la tensión? Serafex presenta el masajista personal Pro-Shiatsu. Superior a vibradores que solo afectan la superficie, Pro-Shiatsu simula la acción de un masaje verdadero, enviando penetrantes ondas de energía que alivian el dolor muscular y el estrés. Úselo en sus pies, espalda, pantorrillas y muslos. Obtenga un masaje efectivo en la oficina o llévelo al gimnasio. No hay nada que suavice, relaje y alivie dolores como el masajista Pro-Shiatsu. Ordene ahora. Para ordenar y para obtener información cómo pagar en moneda local, llame al número en su pantalla ahora. Esta oferta especial para la televisión está disponible solo por un tiempo limitado. No demore. Usted puede ordenar en todos estos países. Las operadoras están esperando para tomar su pedido. Si las líneas están ocupadas, por favor llame otra vez. Quedará absolutamente satisfecho. Las operadoras locales están esperando su llamada.
Explore the world with CNN Travel Guide. Every place you've ever wanted to go, every adventure you've ever dreamed of. Travel Guide offers practical advice on planning your trip, plus insights into the people and places to visit, and the latest bargains and deals to help get the most out of your leisure time. Travel Guide on CNN International.
Coca-Cola has won an injunction against the Polar Soft Drink Corporation. That company must revise an ad that shows a polar bear tossing a Coke can into a bin that reads, "Keep the Arctic pure." Coke argued the ad made its product appear impure. A logging proposal in Northern California is pitting loggers against environmentalists with gorillas caught in the middle. Rusty Dornan has that story.
Bird. Sign bird.
This is CNN Breaking News.
The plane is on the ground. The door is open. The family is at the foot of the steps awaiting Bobby Hall's exit from the airplane. Several members of the U.S. military have already gotten off. They are now greeting his family. What we have been told is that two members of the military, Major General Norman Earl Williams, Director of Logistics and Security Assistance, he will go on the plane first. Now there is Bobby Hall's immediate family going up the plane, and also with him, of course, with the Major General was going to be Colonel Vincent Santillo. He also would be going on board to meet with Bobby Hall. The family is now on board the plane. You can see that they have gone inside. We are not sure how long it will take for them to come off. The initial greetings, the exchanges, obviously a very, very emotional time. The last 2 weeks filled with great anticipation, then hopes dashed when Bobby Hall was not released on Christmas. And of course, he remained in captivity a few more days inside North Korea as nearly around-the-clock negotiations went on for his release. The immediate family, again, on the airplane. Obviously, it will only be a few minutes, we suspect, before he emerges with his family. We know that he is anxious after this long, trying period to get home to Brooksville, Florida. He still has a 40-mile drive from here to Brooksville, which is north of Tampa, where we are at MacDill Air Force Base. It is unclear what the plans will be from this point on, other than to go home, and as his wife Donna said, to spend a very quiet and restful New Year. Certainly a very, very happy New Year will be spent by the family. It is interesting that from what we understand, Thomas Hubbard, the State Department official who was apparently instrumental in the 11th hour negotiations in North Korea to get Bobby Hall out, apparently is on the plane and did make this trip back here to MacDill with him. It looks now like the family is again emerging off the plane. We assume that Bobby Hall, that is him there. There are about 30 or 40 or 50 people who are gathered here, many members of the armed forces who came for this joyous moment for Bobby Hall's return, who came here to watch this event. Some of them are former Korean War veterans. One man handled logistics in Korea during the Korean War, and he said he just had to come for this very, very special moment. He knew what it must be like. Another woman who we talked to earlier here, one of the many carrying American flags, broke into tears, saying that she's expecting a baby in a couple of days. Her husband is in the military, and he's away a lot. And he puts him in Bobby Hall's shoes. And she broke into tears as she said that, and said that's why she came out. Again, dozens of people gathered here. That wasn't Bobby Hall coming down the steps. We're still awaiting that arrival right now for him to emerge from the United States of America. A former Air Force One plane that is now here and was pressed into service for this return trip. You can see up in the doorway a couple of the generals who we spoke of and colonels. And there now, you can hear the cheers of the crowd. We expect that after these greetings are exchanged here, that Bobby Hall, accompanied by his family, will make their way to the podium that is right in front of us, just about 15 to 20 feet away from us, and he will make a brief statement to the 100, 150 members of the press who are gathered here. And after that point, he will not take any questions, and then he will immediately leave in a motorcade back to Brooksville, Florida. Hugs and kisses being exchanged here again on the ground. Obviously, a reunion that is very, very joyous. Again, there were so many times when it looked as if he would be released very soon. Then those hopes were dashed. Then more negotiations. Of course, historically, North Korea has returned men who have gone down behind the lines in other instances. This was actually a rather speedy return of an American pilot to the United States after being caught behind enemy lines, behind North Korean lines. At this point, you can see, again, the warm embraces there on the tarmac. Actually, surprisingly, taking a bit longer than we might have expected for him to make his way here over to the podium. We're sure that he must be exhausted. The flight from Elmendorf Air Force Base in Alaska alone, which was the only other stop on his way from Korea, the flight here from there was 7 hours. That doesn't count the first half of the trip from Seoul, South Korea, on into Elmendorf. So again, an exhausted Bobby Hall, arms being placed on his shoulders, people patting his back there, the warm reunion of family. His father, of course, Bobby Hall Sr., also a member of the military. We believe he is out there as well. One of the young boys waving an American flag out there. A very, very sentimental moment. In a lot of ways, it's reminiscent of when the troops returned from the Gulf War, covering those returns and families greeting the soldiers. Hubbard is there on the tarmac with Bobby Hall. It appears as if this is going to go on for a few more minutes here. It again is not clear exactly what his plans are in the next few days, other than to get some much-needed R&R. We suspect he will be greeted warmly. We expect that he will be greeted very, very warmly when he gets to Brooksville tonight. I'm certainly that some of the people, the townspeople, will be there. A week from tomorrow, it is believed that the small town will host a parade in his honor, and then there will be a picnic. He will also be given a key to the city, and now he is moving here to the podium. You can hear the cheers of the people who have gathered again. Many people, Korean War veterans here, many others whose husbands and wives are in the military, who just felt that this was a moment. They needed to be here. They needed to show their support for this man and
Mr. Hall
for
has a
the
short
service.
statement to make. There will be no questions.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that it's great to be back. I want to take this opportunity to thank those who helped make this all possible and to briefly discuss the incident. But first, I'd like to extend my sincere condolence to Barrett Heilman again. My prayers are with her and the Heilman family. I'd like to thank my family and the people of Brooksville, especially, for being with me all the way. I've seen some of the stories in the Tampa Tribune and the St. Pete Times, and you are really a bunch of great people. I also want to thank my chain of command, 4th Battalion, 501st Gunfighters, and the United Nations Command, members whose support, concern, and hard work got me here this quickly, and for Mr. Hubbard, who, for his help in speeding my release. Now I'd like to make, thank you. Now I'd like to make a few comments about the flight. First, I really don't know how we ended up across the DMZ. If I knew that, we wouldn't have been there. We really thought we were flying well south of the DMZ. The first time I knew something was wrong was when I heard a loud explosion and the windshield in front of us caved back in on us. The aircraft lost power and started going down. Dave turned to me, and the last things I remember him saying was, "Bobby, I've been hit." I turned to him, and I can see that he had been hit, and the only thing I can say was, "Are you okay?" He never replied. After the aircraft came to a rest, I saw that Dave had been thrown from the cockpit, and Dave died shortly thereafter. He died at the crash site. and I was with him when he died. I was captured immediately thereafter by the Korean People's Army, and throughout my captivity, I was very well treated, and I was well fed. They were very concerned about my well-being. I know you have more questions, but it's been a long trip. As you know, just short 24 hours ago, I was in North Korea, and again, it's great to be back home. I'm looking forward to some family time, then hope to get back to my unit and back to flying. Thank you very much.
His voice racked with emotion. Bobby Hall, first condolences to the family of his co-pilot, David Hilleman, who, as he recounted in his brief statement, died on the ground after the helicopter went down behind the lines, the DMZ, inside North Korea.